All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating what if from our source material. The question is this: could one single law completely change the future of a society? We're not talking about something complicated. We're talking about a simple tweak to the legal marriage age. And the ripple effects, well, they could be absolutely staggering.
So, what's the big idea? It's pretty straightforward, really. Imagine a new rule gets passed. Women can't legally get married until they're 25. Seems simple enough, doesn't it? But, and this is the key part from our source material, this one little change could set off a massive chain reaction. We're talking about things that affect everything, from how many people are in the country to how much money is in your pocket. So let's break down exactly how that might play out.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the hypothetical rule itself. Then we'll get into the big stuff, the impact on population, how it might help build better futures for everyone, why it could actually ease the burden on men, and finally, how it could lead to what the source calls the rise of woman power.
All right, first things first, let's just lay out the basic idea. You know, in most places, the legal age to get married is somewhere around 18. The scenario we're digging into today just bumps that number up to 25, specifically for women. And that 7-year difference, that's the little spark that supposedly ignites everything else we're about to talk about.
So what's the very first domino to fall in this chain reaction? Well, according to the source, it's population. It turns out there's this really direct and kind of surprisingly powerful connection between the age women get married and how fast a country's population grows.
I mean, just think about the difference for a second. The source points out that if you get married at 18, well, kids often aren't far behind. That leaves a really long window to have a bigger family. But what if you push that to 25? Now you've got two people who are a bit more mature, maybe more settled in their lives. They're way more likely to sit down and actually plan for a smaller family, maybe just one kid. The big insight here is that this simple delay could work like a natural brake on population growth, all on its own.
But look, this idea goes way beyond just numbers and population statistics. The source argues it can fundamentally change people's lives on an individual level. We're talking about building better futures, especially when it comes to things like education and careers. And the source lays out a pretty clear roadmap for how this works. That 7-year window from 18 to 25. Suddenly, it's not just waiting time. It becomes this critical launch pad. It's the time you need to finish your education, to get a career started, to get your feet under you financially. So when marriage does happen, it's not about one person depending on the other. It's a true partnership between equals.
And this isn't just theory, right? This has a huge impact in the real world. The source makes a great point. We live in a time of crazy high inflation. I mean, rice is 50 rupees a kilo. Trying to support a family on just one person's salary, the pressure is just immense. But when you have two people earning, that whole financial burden gets split. It just creates a way more stable, solid foundation for the family and for the marriage.
And that is what the source is talking about when it says financial equality. It's not just about splitting the bills, you know? It's about having your own autonomy, your own agency. If a woman is earning her own money, she has her own power. The source gives this perfect example. If she wants to buy a 10,000 rupee sari, she doesn't have to ask anyone. She can just buy it. That kind of independence, it changes the whole dynamic. Okay, so you might be thinking, this all sounds like it's about empowering women, and it is. But here's a really interesting twist from the source material. It makes a super compelling case that this change could be a massive benefit for men too. How? By getting rid of a really heavy, really old expectation. This quote from the source it really hits home, doesn't it? From a young age, so many boys are taught this mantra. You have to be capable. You have to earn. You have to run the whole house. It's not just a piece of advice. It's this crushing weight of expectation. And that weight can lead to a ton of stress and frustration later in life. So imagine what happens when you lift that pressure off. The source suggests it creates this amazing positive domino effect. Less financial stress for men means less anxiety, which leads to a happier, healthier marriage. The entire relationship shifts. It stops being about a provider and a dependent and becomes what it should be, a true supportive partnership. All right, so we've been talking about individual couples and families. Now let's zoom out and look at the big picture. What happens when all these individual changes start happening at once? Well, according to the source, it all adds up to one massive societal shift. They call it the rise of woman power. And it's basically what happens when you empower millions of women at the same time. And putting this in perspective is so important. Think about it. 100 years ago, the roles for women were, well, incredibly limited. Today, things have changed dramatically, for sure. But the source argues that a rule like this isn't just one more small step forward. No, it's like hitting the accelerator. It's about fast-tracking society towards a future where there's real, genuine equality. So, when you boil it all down, here's the biggest takeaway from the source material. A law like this, it's not just a rule change. It's a catalyst. It's something that sparks evolution. Because when women are educated, when they're financially independent, You're not just empowering one person, you're making the whole system stronger. The economy, the family unit, and society as a whole. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. I mean, if one single law about the age of marriage could potentially set off such a massive ripple effect, changing demographics, economics, and even the culture itself, it really makes you think, doesn't it? What other single, simple rule could completely transform a society?